All right, welcome to Real Estate Success. I'm your host, Mena Badros, here today with Greg MacAdam. Greg, great to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Greg, before we dive into real estate stuff, I'd love for people just to get to know who you are. Without going into professional accomplishments, can you tell people who you are?
Sure. I am 39 years old. I have been married for 13 years, together with my wife for 19 years. We have two great kids. Little boy Michael, 10 years old. Little girl Megan, 7 years old. I'm into sports and golfer. Played football and baseball growing up. Now coaching those sports with my son.
That's awesome.
What a wonderful experience that is. And a family man. And as with getting into my professional credentials now, real estate investor, flipper, realtor. That's my passion at this point in my life, and has been able to provide for my family and myself the lifestyle we live, which is fantastic. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Awesome. How did you get in real estate?
Well, started with my grandfather. He started MacAdam Real Estate in 1960 in Broomall. He was working on his own, and he basically determined that it made more sense for him to open up his own brokerage, paying another broker. And that's how it was back in the day for him. For us, we can just go to a brokerage and they'll give us a 90% split or whatever it is. But wasn't like it back in the day. He had to open up his own shop, and my grandmother totally supported him. He started off with, I think, two agents, and that was in 1960. 1980, he retired. My dad took over, became Century 21 MacAdam, and he had a partner, Rich Fleming, and they did that for about 30 years, which was right around the time I got into the business. I worked with my dad for 3 years before our office ended up merging with another office, and my dad stepping down and no longer doing management, just more so sales part-time. And I've been with a few different brokerages over the course of my 16-year career. I've learned a lot from one team in particular, and just throughout the different brokerages. I've worked alongside top producers, and I've learned it all with cold calling, with referrals and past clients, and every avenue you can think of to get business I've done, and I've gotten business from, and I've received training in. So I like to consider myself an expert.
Awesome. So you had, between your grandfather and father, about 50 plus years of experience there, right?
60,
Uh,
yeah, 60, 63.
right, in real estate. What's your perspective on that? I mean, did that give you an advantage coming into the industry? Did you already have kind of knowledge, background, familiarity, or kind of what's your perspective on how that may have given you
So
an edge?
So growing up, I learned nothing about real estate. You could say my dad adopted the Godfather mentality of you don't talk business at the table, at the dinner table.
Mm,
So I never heard a peep from him growing up.
really?
He was just a family man at home. But me and my dad have always had an amazing relationship. He coached me in baseball growing up. We really bonded over that. We worked well together over that. We were, always had a successful team. And when I was in college, I just was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I originally wanted to be a psychologist, actually, because I, love people, love talking to people, and love being able to help them with their problems. And I just
Mm,
felt like I was always a good friend, and always someone good to talk to. So that's what I originally wanted to do. But things kind of developed, and throughout college, I realized I want to I want to work with real estate, and really more so just follow my dad and work with him. And I knew there was good money to be made in real estate. But really, what drove me was just I'll go work with dad. I like him, I love him. We work well together, and seemed like a good fit. So you could say I had an advantage. I think a big advantage for me, and I think any son of any broker can say this is, yeah, your dad's the broker, that helps. But what I would do, because I was 23 years old and looked like a baby when I got into real estate, I would bring him on appointments with me. And, at first, because I needed to know what I was doing and to observe and, be able to have someone to field questions that I may not know the answers to. But even, a few years into it, when I was comfortable enough to go on my own, I would still bring him because at 26 years old, I still looked like a baby. And I didn't want people being like, I'm not working with this guy. He's a kid. What does he know? So I didn't want that objection. And I would have and could have lost a lot of business because of that. And quite frankly, I don't blame people. I'd be the same way. So I would bring him on all my appointments. I made him a busy man because I was doing a lot of expireds, a lot of for sale by owners, some cold calling, and, pretty much any lead I got, I was bringing him with me. So that way the people felt comfortable, like, oh, all right, this is the broker's son. All right, the broker's here. He's obviously going to be involved. He's here on the appointment. So people felt comfortable, and it was never an objection for me to get business was because I was too young. So in a sense, yes, I did have an advantage, but at the same time, anybody out there can do that with a managing broker or with a manager, period. The question is, how much is that manager really going to free themselves up and run around with an agent? Because I ran him around a lot. I was making a lot of phone calls. I was hustling and making a lot of appointments. So the question is nowadays, but you could also do that with a team leader, though. If you have a real estate, top producing team leader, how much they're willing to support you and run around with you, call it. So that's it. So yeah, maybe I had an advantage, but it's also, it's no excuse for any other agent out there that's trying to get into the business. Hook yourself up with a great team leader that's really going to mentor you and be by your side. That's going to be your ticket, and you could have every advantage that I had as well.
Awesome. And you mentioned a few things there, kind of what you did then, but what did you do early on to generate leads? What were your go-to pillars?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, I was just out of college. I was still a kid, still kind of living that college lifestyle, bartending. And, the first year I didn't really do a ton of business. I did, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 transactions, but, and I was following up with some old office leads. I was doing some open houses. But what really changed my career and changed my life and even dramatically impacts my life today. And I'm sure he's going to put this on his website somehow now, but I have Daryl Davis to thank a lot for this. When I was 24 years old, he came to an event with Century 21 and, basically trying to get people to do his coaching program. And he started off like just being absolutely hilarious. And, I had the whole place laughing, and, I ended up signing up for the program, and my dad encouraged me to sign up for it. And which, had he not, I may have passed because it was, a lot of money for me at the time. Anyway, I learned how to prospect for FSBOs, expireds. And, when I was 24 years old, I listed an $800,000 home through his program and through his teaching. And then from there on out, it was a lot of, FSBOs and expireds for the next couple of years. And, I landed an expired lead, one in particular that I guess I was about a year or two in, or maybe closer to 3 years in. I was still working expireds, and I landed a lead where, the guy had been listed with 2 different brokers before, didn't sell. He listed with me, took us 6 months, but I eventually sold a house to him. And then I sold the house that he bought. And then over the course of 10 years, I sold his kids' homes, his cousins' homes, and he worked for a developer. And, eventually I ended up landing a project that consisted of 84 listings. So that was a game changer for me, and just kind of how my career unfolded with prospecting, which is a very rare case. You could say I got a little lucky, but I also earned it because I earned this guy's trust with my experience over 10 years of working with him. And it's simple. There's 2 very simple things you have to do in this business, which is actually 2 of the hardest things for a lot of people. Be honest and work hard. That's it. That's all you got to do. If you work hard, you're going to learn the business. You're going to do a good job. And if you're honest with people, they're going to know it and they're going to feel it. And, there's not a ton of that out there. A lot of agents aren't working very hard to prospect. A lot of agents, may not be as honest as they could be. But that's it in a nutshell: is honesty and work hard.
All right. So talking about kind of the things that you have to do, coming into the business now, right? There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of, bells and whistles and carrots, all dangling in front of you. What should agents kind of focus on and narrow in on when they begin their real estate agent career?
That's a great question. And, I'll be 100% honest. I have been out of the prospecting game, at least for sales, for about 3 years. And the reason being, I switched that energy and effort into flipping homes and looking for homes. So that's where my energy has been over the past few years. I'm still doing sales, of course, past clients and referrals and things along those lines. And then, I had some new construction that had a lot of listings and was carrying me as well. But I mean, I would say, for someone that needs to drum up sales and, drum up a career, hit the phones. Forget texting. I mean, yeah, you can text, of course, mix it into the mix, but pick up the phone, talk to people, have as many conversations as you can with anybody and everybody, particularly people you meet at open houses, particularly people that just may come into your life, however, whatever kind of lead it may be that's thinking about buying or selling real estate. Have conversations, build relationships, and then just consistently follow up. Build that relationship. I mean, there's many different avenues you can do. I think online leads are a great way, but they can be expensive, and you do have to spend a lot of money for it to make money.
And you still have to call
Um, what you still have to call them, yeah, and you have to call them and get them into properties and build relationships. Yeah, I think online leads, open houses. I think cold calling. Now I know Mike Ferry. If you're really going to invest some money, I mean you're talking like $7,000-8,000 to invest in a Mike Ferry program. They're big on cold calling, so it sounds like they have it down. But I know that's an intense program. I have a friend of mine that's doing very well with cold calling, and I have another friend who was a very big cold caller, a top producer in my father's brokerage, and the guy cold called and had a work ethic like you wouldn't believe, and he thinks cold calling's dead because nobody's picking up their phones anymore, so or answering calls with numbers they don't recognize. So I kind of have, I'm being told two different things from two of my friends that have had a lot of success cold calling. So for me personally, I stopped cold calling because there was one point where I was cold calling a lot. And then I look back and I'm like, wait a minute, I only got 4 transactions from cold calling this year. And I did a lot of cold calling. So that's at that point is when I switched gears and I was like, well, I've always wanted to flip homes and I've always been intrigued by it. Let's give that a shot because it looks like cold calling's on its way out. So, that's where I am, and I wish I could answer the question a little better and having a little more recent experience because times are always changing. But I just want to be honest that I've kind of been out of the prospecting game for a few years now.
Right. What would you say is when you say get on the phone? I want to talk about the phones for a second, whether cold calling is dead or not. And obviously, I think it's effective in some forms, right? Um, did you have any like phone training, prospecting training, or was that just kind of a natural for you? I think there's a lot of hesitancy to get on the phone, especially as the communication mediums have changed and evolved right over the years, and maybe more people prefer texting or don't want to be on the phone, or as you said, very much the number of pickups have decreased. So there's a lot of hesitancy to get on the phone, even from sales professionals. What helped you get on the phone?
So I was shaking my head originally saying no training, which FIS wasn't expired. I had a seminar that I went to kind of guide how to do the conversation. So it was only a few day seminar for that training. Cold calling, when I started, no formal training at all. What I did was I eventually went alongside the top producer in my office and kind of, listened to what his tactics were and kind of, I guess rubbed elbows, you could say, but no formal paid training. There was also this trainer, Ricky Caruth. He was free training, and I followed him. I actually buddied up with a guy in the program and paid him to train me on cold calling a little bit. But for the most part, when I started, it was from my cell phone, from a phone book, 123 Main Street, and just started calling people and be like, "Hey, you interested in selling? Hey, were you thinking about selling? Hey, were you thinking about selling?" And just kind of went through the list with that, and then had an Excel database that my wife made up. She's very technologically inclined, and it was super helpful. So I had that. We made our own CRM through an Excel database, and just again called people and pumped the Excel database with leads that people may be interested, and then this consistently followed up with them. Had a follow up date column as to when to follow up with them. One would be, a week. One would be a year. But for the most part, just gauging when the best time to follow up with them would be, and consistently working the database as to who I need to call today. Like, all right, it's January 1 was a big day, call them next year. So a lot of leads to follow up that day. But then I would have a color for each lead as well. Like green was the hot leads, green, money, they're hot. So those are the ones you want to keep in front of you and keep your eyes on. Yellow was the next tier. People who are okay, maybe, 6 months, or they're thinking about it. Blue was a long-term nurture. Like these guys, they're going to do something eventually, but it's not going to be for a while. And then red was dead. So I color coordinated the leads, and that way I had a visual as to which ones I really need to keep my eyes on, and how to kind of rate the leads just so they can get the most attention accordingly.
Awesome. Now you mentioned follow up. Follow up is huge in our business, right? No matter where the lead came from. How did you go about following up? I'm sure the color coding, right, helped you to see who you need to follow up, how frequent, but how did you structure your follow up? How did you go about it?
It was simple. It was just follow up dates. So every lead had a follow up date, and the dates were set into chronological order. So at the very top of the database is June 8th, 2023. So okay, here's the leads. These are the leads I got to follow up with today. And the tough part is getting the lead on the phone, because you can call, and they're not answering. So there's a lot of leads that kind of die off just because they stopped answering the phone. And the most challenging part about it is getting people to answer their phone. And the leads that ended up turning over were people that were consistently answering their phone. A lot of little old people, little old ladies, and old men that are just kind of sitting around the house all day. This is back when there's landlines, because landlines have pretty much died since. But people that just answer every call that comes in. Those are the people that turn over, because you can actually get them on the phone and work them and convert them. So
Right.
I
Now
would
people
just
don't want to pick up their phones. So
what's that?
so now people don't want to pick up their
No,
phones.
it's challenging. And, I think you do need to work texting into the mix more, because people
Sure.
will respond to texts more.
Yeah.
So it's a little challenging, but I would have the leads in chronological order, and then just follow up with them per the date that I'm supposed to. So like the 1st and 15th would be of every month would be big dates for follow up. And there was also a column where I would put notes in the column. So I would remember the lead. I could reference things that we've talked about, so they can see I'm personalizing it, and not just some random person calling them that they barely know, and just calling, talking, and building the relationships. I mean, there was a point towards the end of my cold calling career where I'd be calling people and be like, "Oh, hey, Greg," like they actually liked me and were happy to hear from me because we had nice conversations. And that's what it's all about, just being genuine, having a nice conversation, and being polite, and actually caring about the person to some degree, even though they're a complete stranger. But talking to them, and just being friendly.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have a time block or time blocks for follow up?
Yes. So, I mean, I was, I guess it was for about 4, I'm trying to think, for about 4 years of my career. Every morning, it was 9 or 9:30 to 11:30 ish. I would be making my calls, whether it was follow up or whether it was just cold calling, and doing fresh calls. I mean, that was my prospecting time, and it's like, for a lot of people with working out, do it first thing in the morning or you're not going to do it at all. That's, I think a lot of people adopt that mentality and adopt those habits. Eat the frog, because you're not going to want to do it later in the day and has less of a chance of getting done. But if you get in the habit of doing it first thing in the morning, and it becomes religion, where even, the times when you don't feel like doing it, you're still doing it because it's a strong habit and a strong discipline. I mean, that's what made me successful, was my strong discipline to make the calls every morning. I wasn't a big afternoon caller. I could have been, should have been, and at points I was, but I can say this too. This is something I learned from the top producer out of my dad's office when we were Century 21 in Broomall. I mean, this guy was a machine. I mean, he was cold calling. He cold called in the afternoon, which I didn't do a whole lot, but he was cold calling in the morning. He was cold calling on Saturdays, 10 to 2. And what I found impressive was he would come in 3-4 nights a week, and he'd cold call from 6:30 to 8:30. I mean, it was an unbelievable work ethic, and I mirrored it. At least I tried to, because I can. I'll be honest. I definitely be a little lazy at times. Sometimes very lazy, and it would be hard for me to. But it was something to shoot for. It was something to mirror. And there was a point in my career where I was going hard, and I was doing the weekends, and I was doing the nights pretty religiously. And I'll tell you what, those are the best times to prospect, because people aren't stuck in their hectic day. They have a little downtime, whether it's after dinner or whether it's the weekend, and, they're not at work, and people are more willing to talk to you, and people are more willing to pick up the phone. And I remember talking to this top producer, his name's Norm Andrews, that I learned a lot from, and I started to mirror him. And it had been several years I've been in my career, and he was like, "Well, have you ever, made call? You haven't been making calls at nights, have you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "That costs you a lot of money." And it really kind of hit me, like, wow, like, yeah, like I could have maybe an extra six figures in the bank right now had I been making phone calls for the past 4 or 5 years. And converting more leads, and getting more sales. So that really hit home with me. And there was a period when I was making the calls at nights, and yeah, that's kind of how that unfolded.
Do you think that stat would be true today, that more people would still pick up their phones in the evening?
Absolutely, because people are busy during the day. They don't want to be interrupted after dinner time. I mean, parents, yeah, they have kids' sports, but if it's people who are like in their 60s, 70s, who are more apt to move, then yeah, absolutely. Because if you're not busy, or if you're just sitting around watching TV, or just if you're not in the craziness of the day, then you're going to be more apt to pick up your phone versus, "I don't recognize this number." I'm in the middle of trying to get some email tackled. Like, people aren't gonna want to answer their phone. But if it's a time where they have a minute, and they answer somebody that's friendly and nice, and that they actually are gonna end up enjoying talking to, then yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, is how key those hours are to prospect, because no one talks about it, no one trains it, and quite frankly, no one does it. So you don't even have anybody to mirror. And I'd say for people on here that are watching, and very few are going to do this, but maybe if there's one or two out there that ends up doing this, that's trying to boost their real estate career, prospect at night, prospect on the weekends, and do 3 nights a week during the week, and do Saturdays 10 to 2. I mean, that's going to change your life. And you could get several transactions extra a year, which could be life-changing for you. And that's what I would say to new agents, or even people that are just trying to get more sales, and are already prospecting and don't know what to do. I'd say, turn off Netflix, or don't go to that happy hour, or on the weekend, instead of doing whatever, say I have to work 10 to 2, and then enjoy your time from 3 to 10 after that. And it's another thing,
Yeah.
there's a lot of time in the day, a lot of time in the day. And I think if you just commit to and block off those prospecting times, then that's going to be the absolute difference between whether or not you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to ask a few things about some of the things you talked about. One key word that stuck out was discipline, right? You said you had the discipline to make the calls. You also mentioned you found someone and you were mirroring, right, their work ethic or trying to mirror what they do. Um, being that we're independent contractors, it's really easy to get lazy, right? There's no accountability,
100%.
right? So how can someone, and some people are different, right? Some people have different personalities, different upbringings, experiences that makes them just different. But how can someone kind of muster up more discipline, more confidence, more consistency when it comes to the real estate business and prospecting, and possibly the things that they're not good at or they don't enjoy doing in the beginning, right?
Surround yourself with success, plain and simple. Surround yourself with success, whether it's a person that's a solo agent that is doing fantastic, that you could just pop an office next to, and just be in the vicinity of them, or joining a top producing team that is prospecting a lot, and they have a team leader that is very successful and knows what to say on the phones. Immerse yourself in that environment. We are products of our environment. If you start trying to do this on your own, making calls at home on your own, which I actually did and was successful at, but I also immersed myself in environments that help push me. But for starters, I'd say immerse yourself in a successful environment, because real estate offices are dead. No agents are going into real estate offices, at least that I'm seeing. So if you
Right.
go into a real estate office and start trying to make calls there, it's going to be depressing because you're either going to be the only one there, and or people are going to be popping in and out. And if, at least for the majority of real estate offices. But if you want to be successful, find a brokerage where you got people that are pumped up. They're going to be making phone calls. They're coming in the office, making calls. They're checking in with each other. They're sharing more stories. That's the environment you need to put yourself in. Or, like I said, somebody that maybe is doing it on their own, and you're rubbing elbows with them. There's a physical presence. You're not just making phone calls on your own at home and kind of checking in with this person. Like you're feeding off the energy, and I think that's the absolute best thing you can do. Because if you try to do it on your own, you're going to quickly get discouraged. The first cold call I made, I didn't see a check for a year. And I think that's the thing people have to understand, is that it takes a lot of time and a lot of nurturing before you can make money, and people get quickly discouraged and give up. So to surround yourself with people that are making money and that are having success, it's going to keep you going, and it's going to be like, yes, like this can work. Like I just have to stick with it and stick around these people and have the discipline to make the phone calls. And it's just a matter of time and a matter of numbers, and it will come to fruition. And maybe you're doing something wrong, maybe you're saying something wrong
Right.
that's making you not convert, and that's something that you could bounce off your peers or bounce off your mentor. So yeah, I would say become a product of your environment, but you got to put yourself there first.
Right. No, it's a great advice. Let's shift gears for a little bit. Talk about flipping. How did you get into flipping? At what point of your real estate agent career did you get into flipping?
So I was about 13 years into my real estate career, and I would just hear, people making 40, 50, $60,000 on one flip. And I'm like, wow, that's great. One flip and you can make that much money. So I'm not going to lie. The money always intrigued me, because it sounded like you can make good money just from doing the project. And then throughout my real estate career, I got associated with a lot of contractors, plumbers, electricians, and I already had, contractors, many of which became, friends. And like I had the resources, and I was doing a lot of stuff for home inspection repairs. I was doing a lot of stuff with getting listings prepared to go to market. I mean, there'd be some listings that would need a lot of painting and just a lot of brushing up
Right.
before even taken to market. So I already had the experience in managing contractors, which can be a nightmare if you
Yeah.
have if you have the wrong ones. And I've
Yeah.
experienced several nightmares. I mean, put it this way: it is not for the faint of heart, and
Yeah.
it can and will probably make you crazy if you don't have the right contractors. Because there's a plenty contractors out there that are just horrible to work with. I mean, they just turn into being complete unprofessionals, and they stop answering their phone when there's super important things to talk about and manage, and they get way behind on schedule, and that messes a ton of stuff up and costs a lot of money. So it is not by any means for the faint of heart, but it can be quite lucrative. And quite frankly, I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. And I've done 7 or 8 of them. I have so much to learn. I'm making so many mistakes still. I'm not going to lie, but I've also made a pretty darn good amount of money doing it. There's some where I've made no money, and there's some where I've made almost 6 figures. So they all kind of wash out, or should I say they average out. And, the average, you want to be around 40, 50,000. So, there's still a ton that I'm learning, and just really trying to get associated with the right contractors and the right people. That's the name of the game, because it's all about relationships. Whether you're selling or whether you're flipping, it's all about relationships. And one thing I enjoy about my job, the number one thing I enjoy about my job, are the relationships, whether it's with my clients, my fellow real estate agents, my broker, my contractors. I like driving around to my different properties and interacting with my contractors and going over stuff and just kind of having that friendship and being able to work together in harmony. And it's nice when it's harmony, because when it's not, it's awful. But it's
Right.
it's all about it's all about surrounding yourself with the right people, the competent people, the professional people, the polite people, the honest people. That's the key too. And someone that's going to answer their phone when you call them. When people aren't calling you back in a timely manner, it's not hard. I mean, if you want to know if someone's calling you back in a timely manner, like, say to yourself, okay, like if this person was my mother or son and they called me, like, how quickly would I get back to them? Like, you want to have a communication line where it's that strong. And I have contractors that do that. And that's important, because I'm a driver. I'm a now guy. When I want something done and when I'm on the move, we're moving, and we're moving
Right.
fast, because
And if it's not
time
this
is money.
person, somebody else will provide.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's one thing I feel like, especially with my one past client I was telling you about that I did 10 transactions with over the 10 years. Like, I'm on the golf course and he's calling me, and I don't really take phone calls on the golf course, but if he's calling me because he's such a big client, I'm answering. And I'm walking into the woods to talk to him, while everybody else is playing, and doing my best to move along. But just one of those, just having one of those key lines of communication with people, and being able to have that with certain contractors, because I have contractors that bend over backwards for me and always answer their phone, because I give them a lot of business. And I mean, that's key, is finding those kind of people that you have those kind of relationships with, that you're going to enjoy working with, and that are that really have your back and are in it to win it with you.
Awesome. Um, Quick question on the flips. How do you usually go about finding those opportunities?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Anyone can do it. I'm going to give away my big secret, which isn't a secret at all. MLS. I've found all my flips except for one in the MLS.
Yeah. Awesome. About contractors, especially if someone is kind of new to an area or doesn't have, a big vendor list, how can they go about developing those relationships, right? And getting to know good contractors.
Contractors.
Yeah. Contractors,
Uh,
vendors, right? And inspectors, appraisers, lenders, anyone we kind of need for our business, whether you're an agent or a flipper, right?
so I've never been asked this, and off of the top of my head, this is what I would do. I would look up every local brokerage. I would call the managing broker and introduce myself and say, hey, can you give me a list of agents that are house flippers? And hopefully they may give you a few names, and take those few names, call them, introduce yourself, take them out to lunch, whatever. Because if I had a contractor do that for me, I'd be like, great. Like, because, contractors can turn over, and, there's, the contractors don't always stick around, put it that way. It's easy for them to, I don't know. I guess there's a need for them, for all house flippers. Put it that way.
Sure.
You may have a contractor that's, too busy with 2 flips you're doing, but you want to do another one. You need to make more money. So I need another contractor. So, there could be opportunity there. And I would say call local brokers, get a list of agents that are flipping homes, reach out to these agents, take them out to lunch, build relationships, consistently follow up with them, just like as if you're following up with a cold call for a listing. Just, got to be aggressive, man. And you can't be shy. You gotta have some guts, and you got to get uncomfortable with people blowing you off and things along those lines. It's going to happen. So get used to it, toughen up,
Get comfortable getting
Get
uncomfortable,
comfortable
right?
being uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
get comfortable with rejection. I mean, if you're not getting rejected in this business, and you're starting off, and if you're not getting rejected consistently, you're not working nearly hard enough. So, I mean,
That should be what you strive for, right? Get rejection.
absolutely. Absolutely. Get used to rejection. Get ready for it. Because I've talked to some people where it's just like, oh, well, like, like I had, a tough upbringing, and I just have a real hard time with rejection. And I'm like, well, you're in the wrong business, dude. Like, you need to toughen up and get ready for some rejection. Get ready for some, rudeness. Especially if you're cold calling, get ready for some people to flip out on you and drop some F-bombs. Like, it's going to happen. And I got to a point in my career where I'm like laughing on the other line when it happens, because that's all I can do.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's not about you, right? Like, these people, they don't know you. There's probably no relationship there. It's not intended to you, right? It's
that's
they're reacting
exactly
to
it.
the
I mean,
call.
that's exactly it. What can this person do on the other line of the phone that's really going to hurt you, except say a few words, and then it's on to the next, and you forget about it. But back to your question, I would have, contractors reach out to local brokers, get a list of agents that are flipping houses, and start making relationships. And don't be shy, and don't be under aggressive. Like, make a lot of calls. I mean, call 10 brokerages, try to get a list of 3 to 5 agents, call them all. It's a numbers game. It's a contact sport. The more calls you make, the more money you'll make. And it's really that simple. And quite frankly, it may take you reaching out to 20 realtors just to get one, because, some are going to blow you off. Some are too busy. Some are going to, forget about you. But if you make one good connection, and then all of a sudden this guy's flipping 3-4 homes a year, and you end up getting the manpower to run all these crews, I mean, that's it, man. That's a game changer. You're providing an amazing life for your family now, and you have all this work. I mean, it's all about just the relationships and the hustle.
Right. So we're running out of time. I'd love to ask you much more, so maybe we'll do another one. But before
Yeah,
I let you
be
go,
happy to.
awesome. Before I let you go, a few rapid fire questions there, right?
Sure.
Kind of like pieces of advice for different types of agents. So, uh, big piece of advice for new agents, what would it be?
Get yourself associated with a top producing team or top producing individual that is going to take you under his wing and really train you, really mentor you. And yeah, so I would suggest team that's making a lot of phone calls together, and putting in an environment, getting in an environment where it's collaborative and you can make friends that are on the team and be in a supportive environment. So yeah, get on a top producing team that is successful, that is providing leads, and that you can learn from.
Awesome. How about seasoned agents? Maybe you've been in the game for a while, but maybe have a rough patch or struggling. What would you kind of tell them?
That's a great question, and it's hard for me to answer that, just because every agent is so different,
Right.
and I would almost need to sit down and interview each individual agent before I can give them advice, because you try telling a 6-year-old real estate agent that's been in the business for 30 years to start cold calling, they're going to tell you, you know what I mean? So it's like it's a very, very difficult question. So I guess off the top of my head, what would I do? Start making phone calls. Simple. Just hit the phones. Go through your cell phone. Call anybody and everybody, and just remind them you're in real estate. Remind them you can help, and maybe do some more open houses. Invest in some online leads. Just get in front of people, have conversations, generate leads, and yeah, I mean that's. I guess that's the best I can do.
Awesome. How about your big message to real estate professionals, right? If you were speaking at a conference and had one message to deliver, what would it be?
One mess, geez, wow, you're really going deep here, Mina. So
Sorry, sorry.
I love it though, man. I got to give that one some thought, but you're putting me on the
That's all
spot
right.
here.
And I can edit
So
out
one, so
some
what?
of the.
So one message to real estate professionals across the board, young and old, new and old. Geez, uh, have fun doing it.
Hmm, I love
Don't
that.
think don't think it's all business. Have fun. Try to remember, I'd say remember the person that first got into the business and how happy and excited that person was, and do it for them. And just remember, it's about relationships, and the great relationships you make along the way. Value them, treasure them, because it's not about the money, it's about the relationships. And just continue to build and make great relationships. Evaluate the quality of the relationships you have now. Maybe they can use some work, but have fun. Make it a game. That lead comes in, and they're interested in buying. Great. That's exciting. And you get that listing contract signed. Yes, absolutely. That's awesome. And just have fun. Make it a game. It's not all about money. It's not all about work. Have fun. And yeah, that's what I'd say.
I love that. I love that. Well, Greg, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you and admire you, and I thank you so much for your time and for everything you have shared with us. Really grateful, and I think people will get a ton of value out of it. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll do another one of these as well sometime down
Very
the road.
welcome, Mina. Be happy to do as many as you want, brother.
All right, man. You enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, take care.
You too.
All right, bye bye.